Andrew Berry. Well, if we take a look at the profiles of all these guys in the front office, just go get the logos from all the Ivy League teams.
Yeah.
Here you go, 32 years old, youngest general manager in NFL history. 16th GM in Browns history, 6th under Jimmy Haslam. Was the Eagles VP of football operations in 2019. 2 years prior to that, he was the Browns player personnel guy. Somebody asked me before I went on the air, how much credit or debit do you give the 1-31 era of Cleveland Browns football? Is he part of it? Did he stand by and let it happen? Was he living and learning? What happened there?
Well, I think that it was so clear that the mission was to tear down the roster and build it back up. That and with him, he wasn't the guy making final decisions on personnel. So it's hard to, even if you wanted to rip them for Corey Coleman, or could you really attach that to Andrew Berry? I don't think so. So I think it is hard, and you're also dealing with a coach who I think, could have, another coach could have done more with even the limited talent they had. So it's a really tough one for me, other than that I never believed in the whole idea that you had to tear it down to bare bones in order to build it back up.
Meanwhile, there's some Cleveland flavor in the game Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
You got Travis Kelce, you got Clark, you got a whole bunch of guys.
Yeah,
who do you blame Cameron Irving on for not making it here?
That's another one. I mean, look at Austin Ryder, I believe, is starting out there. We know Mitchell Schwartz is playing. So the Schwartz one to me has jumped out, and you and I have talked about it, because they were not only the idea of getting rid of veterans and trading them and trying to get as many draft picks as possible. That's okay, but I guess that's okay. But guys like Schwartz were in their prime. They were 26-year-old players.
And somebody's got to look at him and say, 5 years from now, he's still going to be a really good player.
Yeah, he's still going to be a very good player. And in the meantime, whatever quarterback you bring in is protected by a good offensive lineman.
Right.
And so I never understood that part of it. I don't know why they felt that that was an expendable player.
Well, I think he's kind of the poster boy for what went wrong in that era. And I think the Browns front office at that time, and I'm not sure who the GM was at that moment, but to me it was a final decision by Jimmy Haslam that here's a guy that wanted to check. He had another offer, and he wanted to compare it and decide what he wanted to do. Did he want to stay in Cleveland? Did he want to go with the bigger offer? And I think you got to let if a guy's in your plans, you got to let him have that opportunity to check it out.
Yeah, which
they didn't do.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't do it in other situations that worked out for them too, with Terrell Pryor, right? So I don't know if that was a policy that they had at that point, but it really does make you count again when you go 6th GM under, and you're like, how is that possible?
Since 2012.
And then you think Heckert, Lombardi,
sure,
Farmer, Sashi, right?
Yeah, keep going.
Dorsey, and now this guy,
Absolutely.
and you just hope as a Brown. I'm not a Browns fan. I didn't grow up here, but all my friends and neighbors are, and I just want to see, for once, I just want them to stick with. They've got bright guys in there now, and they'll have a plan for how they want to do this. Whether you agree with the analytic emphasis of the plan or you don't, it's incumbent on Jimmy Haslam to finally sit back and give these guys 3 or 4 years to try to get this thing up and running.
So Andrew Berry is the youngest NFL GM in history. One of the youngest coaches in the NFL is Kevin-Stefanski. Now let's take a look at this. Sean-McVay is the youngest at 34. He'll be entering his 3rd year. Zac-Taylor. Then you've got Stefanski is 3rd. Brian-Flores, Joe Judge, Kyle-Shanahan. That's another one. That's a guy. If you didn't give up on him, who knows what would have happened.
Well, he gave up on them.
Well, but it didn't happen.
For good reason.
Matt-Lafleur and Kliff-Kingsbury, all under 40 or under. So, what do we expect out of this group? You got Stefanski, who's going to run into stuff he's never seen before.
Yeah, I mean, McVay is obviously has been to a Super Bowl already. Didn't have the kind of season he wanted, follow-up season he wanted. People I know down in Cincinnati have a lot of really good things to say about Zac-Taylor, but we know what that season was all about.
Sure.
We saw that season in Cleveland a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So You just have to give these guys, and I was all for firing Freddie Kitchens, by the way, because I think that he was forced into a job that he wasn't ready for, and they ought to know if Stefanski's ready. They've looked at him for 2 years now.
Right.
So they felt strongly about him last year. They feel strongly about him this year. You know, for everybody's sake, I hope they're right for once.
2